No worries.
Yeah, 3 minutes late.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
Everybody okay? That's good.
And do we have someone who would like to do the prayers today? I'm not seeing Janice. Or shall I do them?
William volunteered.
Great. Okay.
Yeah. Sangye chedang choki chonam la chanju pardo dani kyabsunche bhage jinso yepe chonam gi rola penjira sangye robarasho sangye chedang choki chonam la chanju pardo dani kyabsunche bhage jinso yepe chonam gi rola penjira sangye robarasho Sangye chudang soge chonam la chanchu pardo dani kyab Dage jinso gebe chonam ki Rola penjire sangye ndo parasho Simchen tamche dewa dewe gyudang dambara kyuchi Simchen tamche dungal ge gyudang tawara Simchen tamche dungal mebe dewa tang mindawa Simchen tamche nyere chadan nidang nyamla nebara gyuruji Simchen tam dewa na dewe gyudang dembara gyuji dungal ge gyudang tawa dungal mebe dewa na mindawa nyere chadan nidang dawe nyamla nebara gyuruji Simchen tam dewa na dewe gyudang dembara gyuji dungal ge gyudang tawa Dunga mebe dewa dan mindawa Nyirin chadan nidan ta Nyamla neba gyurji Sajwe oeji Choji me doya Riro eliji Nyede Sangye jindo medembu ai Dagananda jinlai chibajo Idam guru rana mendala kamni atayani
Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the accumulation of the practice of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha. By the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. This crown, spread with incense, adorned with strewn flowers, Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon, I imagine as a Buddha land, and by offering it to you, may all living beings enjoy this pure land. Thus, meeting the teaching of the peerless teacher is due to the spiritual mentor's kindness. I dedicate this virtue for all living beings to be cared for by excellent spiritual friends. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami.
관계 도중에 좀 왔다 던데 범배처럼 던배춘이 던제베 고담때 라차차로 세 야다 아주 sembasambo kununde permisive katina gawa chijung kandi chebaina chinye chegina da range khandon gejor chegina da chusun romondo de kunun la raligi di le chawa kandi chena kununde sembasambo chebaina ani ko chawa kandi chena de chusun ru are de mada pe khabres kunun je de permisive kechimbu chade are yang ranchipi tonta mayimba kajab ki simchen tham chiki tonla aningi chik ton chugi neluji nyenne ti sheba chene ti ngi nyamnen chene simchen tham chiki ton tuwin san samardana ani ko kanchi nyenshe tuin ringdung kazu chebayina ti chasang chusundugu are temado chui teba chimbi chui ngena ngaran chipi tontaji hakone ni ngaran dungal selgi injina hibu chungu chama ta ndugu mare wada temai ba hibu chuna samsam je de pe ing je nyamba na chusmin ro na miro tesomre jezong kulong chui je de kare in ru mino kulong la pe misiba karasore ke chimbo yares 근데 군농데 거뒤 나가서 자와 간데지는 군농데 장보지 캔이 저와도 배 미수 배점 버렸어.
And here at the outset, it's important to speak about having a good motivation. And when we set about in whatever activity that we're doing, under the good motivation, under a correct motivation, it's actually the power of that motivation that sees to whatever practice one is doing, whether one is doing a particular Dharma practice or reciting prayers, it's the intention or the motivation behind doing so that actually determines whether it is real Dharma practice or not, whether it really is an endeavor of spiritual practice. And so along with the activity that we're choosing to do, it's very, very important that we complement that with the correct intention, with this mind, the mind behind it, the motivation behind it. And what's really principal here is that one should not just endeavor to benefit oneself through this spiritual practice, but that one should include all sentient beings, limitless as space, in that motivation. And so therefore, whatever practice we're doing some formal practice, or whether we are examining reality, whatever length of time we are committing ourselves to practice, whether it actually becomes a very powerful spiritual practice or not, whether it really turns into Dharma, comes to one's own motivation, comes down to one's motivation. And so one shouldn't just practice thinking, oh, I'm going to do this practice because I want to free myself from suffering and I want to create happiness for myself. This actually, when we think like this, actually, this is not a true spiritual practice. It's doubtful whether we can point this out as being real, true spiritual practice, because this motivation lacks the intention, which includes all others. And this is very, very important. And so here at the beginning, that's why we mention why it's so important to start out with a proper and a good intention.
semba zangpo chanchuki semri buche lagdo. Kanche semba zangpo sidgala jenla pen tapega chani nupa nutsi pangne di nutsi che docho de penta che de penta penpa lap chumbuji ta inza zangpo chabare. Junga komba inza tape mi kangalon di che tugo mare. Di chengen mi nanda tende semba de gyul kela pe komba imbesane rimbuchi najin yani jik dus chene junga kombe chene rimbuchi zeya. Yang rimbuchi zeya ke tonta chik chanchuki semla rimbuchi zeya tonta chik karazana rimbuchi ki 딱 근데 림부치라 소왔다나 강가 툭툭 걸어와. 대가나 진짜 죽이 셈 냠는잖아. 배 신딘 쌈마임바. 여 치마 펜지 상기 고방 디기터 툭 걸어와. 울위 동안 강가 셀 툭 걸어와. 근데 인자 림부치 세야 돼. 장죽이 셈라 림부치 세야 돼. 때리. 된저라 장죽이 셈기 군ung 펜바 장죽이 셈기 짐바지 제바이나 배 미스브 개첨보래. 장주기 샘르무치 용 알자와라 니제 대자와 니진데 전도되겠나 소나진지 니제 끝에는 가서 니제 라미남 장네 니제 콤펠도 땅어 개첨부지 차거래. 배 개첨보래. 배 니제 귤라 마케나 장주기 샘 귤이 깨게 탑시 그런 요 말해. 다 니제라 니지름 밤망 보여래. 단다디 대자와 니진데 세 니제데 아니 니지 첨보함 야니 니지 락삼 덴디지구 차디어래 미스게 첨보레스 덴딩아서 윤도 니지 냠는 째데 쉬우지게 첨보 차더래.
And so we call this the good intention or a good aim, being warm-hearted. And what this all points to is precious bodhicitta, the altruistic intent. And this is what a good intention, this is what is meant by a good intention. And we also call it precious bodhicitta. And within this mind of precious bodhicitta, then we wish to be of benefit and of service to all others. And not only that, we wish as well to avoid doing anything harmful or destructive. And so what is the opposite of something that is harmful and destructive and negative? The opposite of that is good, goodness. And so that's why this is called the good intention. And when this good intention, this altruistic intent arises within one's mind stream, this is likened to something that is very precious, like a jewel. And so this very precious jewel is bodhicitta. And so why is it precious? Well, and why is it called precious? Like this word that's used for something like a precious gem. And so, for example, when we have a wish-fulfilling jewel, then it's said that whatever we wish for, when we have a wish-fulfilling jewel, that all of our wishes will be accomplished. They'll all be achieved. And actually, that's exactly what this precious bodhicitta will accomplish. It will accomplish all of our purposes and goodness in this life and the next. So it is like a treasure that accomplishes all purpose in this life and in the next. A precious treasure that will dispel all of our difficulties. And so embracing a mind of altruism, having that intent behind all of our actions is very, very paramount in our practice. And so therefore, we should always embrace the mind of bodhicitta. and as well is very, very complemented with compassion. So we also work to advance and develop what is all this compassion that we already possess, that also is already part of our our mental attitude, a mental attitude that we already possess, but now we need to progress and advance this. And so we take both the altruistic intent and compassion together. And this is what really then catapults our practice. This is what really drives and fuels our practice. And there are many forms actually of compassion. There are different forms of compassion. There is what is called the great compassion. And there is ordinary compassion, just kind of our regular concern and caring compassion. And then on an ongoing basis, we should really look to foster both of those things, bodhicitta and compassion.
진된 다 니지 첨부 쓰디가라 간디지 구구아래 심진 탄지기 농알 셀레디 나겐 쿠르가 폰두 삼데 니지긴 삼데 답에 농알 셀라 땅두랑 랑와지 중이나 된다 니지들라 니지 첨부 올라가래 니지 락삼 니지 첨부 따띠 랑귤리지 계속나 Deni chanchuki sem gaya la ngondu chopare. Pe misiba ke chanchuki sem ki nguju chagaware. Te kaya chabo shibujira nga so yundu niji minam jangayade. Chazan chanchuki sem sikinde da rangdun tumna rangdun ta ngoni yonsu sopa rangdun chuku tuku ina chanchuki sem magina rangdun chuku tuku ya yomare. 아니 진든 수구양 장죽 셈기 둘루도 구구도 자잔 장죽이 셈데 베 군울라마 땡징 가정 송도 군울라마 땡징 가정에 아니 기나 장죽이 셈고 거레스 두나 장죽이 셈고 거레스 기부용디 갈라다 가라서 미망보지 기부용디라 밤에 자르고도 아니 쉐팅 마르와 디디가 장죽이 셈 고메니 두 세나 파메데 뉴두고are 동알이 온다 셈 중고are 셈 미중이야 장주기 셈도나 셈라 뽑아 트로낭 뽑아 끼기도 대지디가라 빼미스 개첨보래 기나다와 소스 판데 넘게 강워셔 누나 군지 동아 계속 감버셔 세야데 장주기 셈기 투니 용구로와 기부 용드가라 랑게 아니페 겨왕남에 소 선음 사변 리부레 된다wen 리부도 섬전 탐절라 멤버셔도 문샤야 아니 두부준나 겨왕감에 레기 남민제 야부중송 따뜻 민바레 다양이 양도 살지 민사르인다 디 유드마사나 콘 리부 양교로 동할 되나지 깨요 말에 인디가라 다 민송 야부중송선 삼을 거라이나 셈중고야미도 제자 가지벤디데 송야 되고 뭐네 셈레 ペボ
Sake pandita e.
Kache pandita, kache.
Kache pandita.
Oh. 나도 소중 판데 남게 까머쇼. 누노 군지 동arku 동안게 소 겜버쇼. 와당 안한수 띠 맞아 윤두 삼당과에 차고래. 누부시 중디가라 셈줌데 마임바. 장주기 셈기도 더네베 깽은 장주 람드기로 와생디 차고래. 근데 삼당도나 깽엄마데네베 장주두야 람네 유튜브are.
Ani gen la yankir chekani kale di sikje di
inna dewa chosungu panze namka kawarsho duna kunji dungal kur dungal jaso gambarsho as
and so we think about this on an ongoing basis, thinking about directing all of our actions for the benefit of others, to accomplish others' purpose, to serve all beings, to serve all humanity. And this is when we really talk about developing great compassion. Really, this is the authentic great compassion. This is a compassion that encompasses the concern for all sentient beings, not one left out, in the way that one thinks that it's absolutely my responsibility to serve and benefit all sentient beings. And I am going to take this on. It is my responsibility, and I am going to work towards this purpose. I am going to do this. And when one really develops this attitude fully, if done correctly and fully, this is actually what leads to the development of actual bodhicitta. This is what leads to true bodhicitta. And this all comes from developing what we already have inside of us, which is a mind of compassion, a compassionate side of ourselves. But we develop this fully, and this great compassion leads to bodhicitta. And when we are acting out of bodhicitta, we don't act out of one's own benefit, because this has come really now developed in a way that it is authentic bodhicitta. And within authentic bodhicitta, then all one's cares and concerns are for the purpose of benefiting others and achieving their purpose of serving all others. And Kunlun Lama Tenzin Gyaltsen said that when you are unhappy, when you're happy, remember bodhicitta. When you're sad, remember bodhicitta. And this is because, so for example, when everything is good and we're in a perfect situation and everyone around us and we ourselves are happy, it's very, very easy for us to be heedless and lack conscientiousness, let our guard down, so to speak, and forget about others, forget about this good intention. And so when we remember bodhicitta, this helps us from falling into an unconscious or unconscientious or a heedless state. And then again, in that second line, he said, and when one is sad, when one is feeling down, remember bodhicitta. And this is because when we remember bodhicitta, calling to mind our concern for all others, that it is our responsibility to serve all others and benefit them, then we won't get dispirited. We won't get lost in the, oh, woe is me, and our own sadness, but rather we will then become uplifted and remember bodhicitta and remember our altruistic pledge to others. And so then also Kache Pandita has said that when I am happy, may this in a beneficial way fill up all reaches of space. And I dedicate that happiness to all others as full as the reaches of space. And when I experience suffering, may it be the experience of having all others' suffering ripen upon me. And I dedicate all of my virtue to all others, and may this dry up the ocean of suffering. And so in this way, we dedicate our merits to all others. And also then, so in our own happiness, we dedicate to others as far as the reaches of space. And when we're feeling suffering, then we actually take this on as the suffering of all others, seeing it as our Dharma practice, and knowing that once this suffering has been experienced, the cause of suffering has been exhausted and no others will experience this suffering cause. It cannot come and bring about suffering again. And so actually these 4 lines are, a very, very important practice that remind us too of how to bring both our happiness and merits onto the path as well as our suffering. So this was by Kache Pandita. And so again, we're reminded that when difficulties occur, when things are hard, don't be sad, don't be forlorn, but rather, take it on in good purpose, understanding actually that this can be a factor or a condition that we can practice with that will help us develop full bodhicitta.
인디가라 전주기 셈생도 빼게 전부 작도 안 가도 삼당과도 빼게 전부 가디나 소소 자와 가지 건디지도 안 가서 냠도 좀 가도 딱 전주기 셈삼당 가지 되니 먼저 먹어도라 팀 맞는 리고 말아 가디나 자와 간디지 제바이나 디디저가라 전주기 셈 삼로지 땅데 제바이나 자와 두야 레라 아니 가서래 자와이나 휘다보지 공부하래 이거 풍풍 쳐봐지 공부하래 뱀미스밖에 전부 작아래 인디 맞아 윤도 냠는 제야돼 와다 전주기 샘기 짐베고네 제과데 뱀미스밖에 전부 차대요래 굴롱 것도이나 전주기 샘기 짐바지 주마 진짜 간제 주마만 방송길래 단다기 말아 간제 수수 배 심전 탐제를 매바지 이제 된데배 이쟁기 돈당했지 지금 삼대 매바 이치 템포 지금 이제 봐이나 전주기 샘 주마가 진도 와래 배 개천버래
So it's very, very important for us to reflect on how our mental intention and our attitude, including this in all of our activities, is really so crucial and very, very important, very impactful. And so in whatever we do, we should always have the altruistic intention, be engaging in any conduct or activity for the purpose of bringing benefit. And so this is in whatever, so we should reflect on that. And actually it's in whatever we do, we should always be doing it backed with the intention to bring benefit to others. It's not that, for example, sometimes with some activities, we hold bodhicitta and wish for it to be of benefit, and other times we just drop that intention. Actually, that's, wouldn't be terribly like the right way to go about it. The correct way to go about it would be to always, in whatever we're doing, whatever it is that we're doing, whatever activity it is, do it for the purpose of bringing benefit to others. And whatever activity we're doing, then, even if it's just kind of a worldly activity or like a mundane act, whatever we do will be easier. And then actually, whatever we do will be accomplished more easily. And then actually it will be a true meaningful act. And so again, this all comes down to intent, whether we're embracing a caring concern for our actions and words to be of benefit to others or not. And so actually, it would be very, very hard to develop true, unfabricated, authentic altruism without first needing to fabricate it a little bit. So at first, we really need to put on a happy face and really, really work to conjure up this intention in the beginning, to develop it, to bring it up within our mind stream. Because if we don't do that first, it won't arise. and we won't develop full, authentic altruism and bodhicitta. So in the beginning, we have an interest in doing it, and we remember to conjure up this intention. And then after doing this for some time, after developing it, purposefully conjuring it in our mind, then after some time, without any fabrication whatsoever, just naturally authentic altruism and bodhicitta will naturally arise.
와서 두스 덴디 니가라 빼 미스베 다 개침부 차고도 너나 숭도 심둘와네 대와라 심둘와네 이든 렌저 숭도 이 이데 이기대와 심둘이나 셈싱인데 녀몽처럼 마다지 둘스디가라 녀몽처도 저로 마주지 셈데 개외 초수 공펠도 땅와이나 셈둘와래 셈지지도 셈빠메 차고 말와 셈 녀몽처도 차이나 셈 빠메 차고래 셈 머루와 차고래 셈 날도 마네바 차고래 셈 녀바즈 차고래 딘디가라 다 시부지 게 전벌이 되죠. 나랑도 셈 다 시레가 간데지나 셈 마키비가도 제이나 내가 친춘지나 징이만도 바지 응우도
La.
시레가 지데지나 셈 마키비가데 징이만도 바가 셈이나니 디니 징이만도 바데제나 내가 고 치중만 춘춘지나 때 징이만도 바 내가도 마두바지 응우도 셈은 딩네니 빼 좋아지 유베고니 지제바이나 지 가제 전부지나 내가도 좀 좋은 용도 또 셈베도 딘디가 셈싱인데 이게 개화잖아 투첨보 리바잖아 투첨보 셈 두고 자와데 딘디라 셈데 둘 시디가라 셈 가서 빠빠녀서 냐데요 말데 셈라타 거디나 자라제데 셈타네 미게와 초데 가서 툭툭지 슈슈다 이게 왜 초대 가서 툭툭지 슈체로 당해야 돼. 다 공편도 당해야 돼. 루시나 셈라 종다리 연구하래. 셈 종다리네 셈데 왜 초서 차장도 왜 초서 카정 투이나 셈 둘와래. 셈데 개개가 너무 미게 초서 그거나 셈데 마둘와 차다. 마루와 차바래. 딘도갈 맞아 균도 맞아 건가 대완등에 동알 민덕인 차되어래 동알때 미거할 때니 깨거래 대와데 에거할 때니 깨거래 제가 그디 판라 아버지 시어와데 때 민스럽게 전부 차거도
And so actually, this is a very, very important step for our training. We at first purposefully bring it to mind, and through repeatedly doing so and habituating this, familiarizing this, it then actually becomes just the way we go about things naturally. This is a very, very important step. And actually, it speaks about this. The Buddha himself did speak about this, where he spoke about the taming of the mind and bring the mind to be tamed, and one will gain happiness. And so what it means, what is meant by a tamed mind is a mind that is free of any disturbing emotions, and as well, a mind that is naturally oriented towards virtue, towards goodness and positivity. And so this is the opposite, for example, the opposite of this, an untamed mind would be when the mind is wild and we're doing whatever we want without just being carefree and not careful in our thoughts and words and actions, just doing whatever comes up, just wild. And And so if we tame our minds on the other side, on the other hand, to become tame means a state where we are conscious and caring and concerned. And actually, this all comes down to our mental state and our outer actions. Even when it comes down to, for example, a very, very simple task that we might need to get done. If we're unhappy and disturbed, when we go to do this task, this outer task, actually, we can't even accomplish the smallest thing because of this disturbed mind. But on the other hand, when we have like a great interest and great focus and are very conscious, even something big we can accomplish pretty easily. We set about it and we can accomplish it. It really all comes down to the mind. The mind is the very powerful factor behind all of this. And it can be very powerful in a negative sense or very powerful in a positive sense. And so that is why the Buddha said there that one should tame one's own mind. And when this word tame doesn't mean to bring something to dullness or ambivalence, but what it means is to bring something under check and really having control over it and checking to see what is the state of one's mind and having control over the state of one's mind. And the aim here is to encourage positive mind states and eliminate the negative and defiled, disturbing emotional mind states. And so in order to do this, actually, we need to train our minds. This is something that needs some repetitive conditioning. So we have to work with the mind over and over again to bring down those negative emotions and to bring up those positive emotions. And actually, when we have an untamed mind, a mind that is not tamed, this is when we are not in check with our mind. We're not keeping our mind in check. And that's why bad actions can come out and negative motivations and bad actions can come out of a wild and untamed mind. And it's important to remember this because all suffering and negativity that we experience, all difficulties and disease and so forth, and difficulties that we experience, all come from non-virtuous non-virtues. And these non-virtues, again, come out of an untamed mind state. And all happiness comes out of being oriented towards virtue. And so therefore, it's very, very important if we wish to be free of suffering states, that to tame our mind, bring it in check, is very, very crucial.
Yeah, that 그런 데 미스베게 첨보를 그뒤나 다디 개체셔자 자디어래. 다든지 니가라다 맞아. 그래서 눈다들라 디와틸랭게 조금만 기술 디와이나 담보 디와지당 때문에 그상 가서 초소바 밑에 탈와 들어와. 그상 참대. 와다티 마 라보스 디와이나 담보 디와같이 제긴 디와틸랭 제기나 some 디와틸랭 맞네 도스진데나 한 디차그래. 디와틸랭데 첨보지래.
And so again, here and at all times, our intention behind what we're doing is really of paramount importance. And so the last time that we met last week, we didn't have time for questions and answers. And sometimes that happens, and sometimes it's good, that we're working with a flow where it's all, directed towards, the teaching. But also question and answer time is really important. So Geshe-la said that we can take questions now if there are questions. And if there aren't questions, we can continue in the text.
그상 로차르교 되나네 수소 똑바요나 니고래 대마인 바카레나 수소 똑바요 여겨데 디제당이 랭게 투야지나 어디 느리지레즈 랭게 갸투야면은 니 제마 빼잘타네 랭게고 라그래 나 대밤도 제가요 말에 주기 분부 기리지도 좀 됐는데 나간 거 코도 주요 말아.
And Geshe-la said, your questions can be about material we've already covered. It can be questions about whatever. If you have questions about something, hesitations, something that just wasn't clear, so it can be about what what he's taught about or recently, or it can be unrelated. That would be fine. And Geshe-la said he absolutely, if he knows the answer, he will offer the answer. If he doesn't know the answer, then he can consult the texts and bring an answer next time. And he said, the Buddha taught 84,000 heaps of teachings, and he hasn't been able to, he doesn't know all 84,000 by heart. So he might have to consult the texts and get back.
밤도 제가요 말고 뭐는 주 마시게 마셔버리 수준 장긴데 여러모도 수준 장춘대긴지 말아 장춥 시디가라 상기 사마다 요 말다 밤도 제가 제 그가서 요 말에 밤도 제가요 말에 강시바들라 오늘 펜타베 펜나 삼바장베고니 랭게야데 마시바데 주버틀렌지나 마시바 망부지 수소 지가르서래 양 빼절로에 그 고갑라고도 와 빼펜도도 와 마라나 펜도 첨부하래 따디 오늘 빼자 중된데나 가르도서 로야라고도 와
And so there's this word enlightenment, which in Tibetan is Jang Chup. And that means this, to be fully purified and fully replete with all knowledge and qualities. And actually, that's not something actually that we achieve until we attain the fully enlightened state or the state of Buddhahood. And so so that's why I'm saying that, I don't know it all. And it's important not to act like one knows it all when one doesn't actually. But it is important to hold the wish to benefit those that are asking questions, but very important not to act or pretend like we know something when we don't really. And so actually that's quite beneficial if a question is asked and, for example, I don't know the answer to that, because then that gives me or gives one, self the opportunity then to turn to the text, to turn to the scriptures, to see what the authoritative scriptures have to say about that. And so to me, actually, it's very, very helpful, Geshe-la says, because he would be able to refer to the text, gives him an opportunity to read the text again and say, oh, I wonder what the texts say about this.
Hey, Diane.
Yes.
Hey, can I ask Geshe-la a question? I've been wanting to see how well I understand this material, so I was just, yeah. So, would a Prasanjika Madhyamakan agree with this if this statement. External objects that we perceive, because we're not enlightened, we perceive them in incorrectly, and because of that incorrect view, we either have an aversion to them, or we attach to them, and we see them incorrectly, and that is what causes our suffering. Is that?
아니, di lapna digiana pena di umatal gyorwe gi luxor togne nato ani pena sosokebo ngatur nangshin chirogi ngopo denso ngato di tongna ani nato ani trunang ani tongiore trunang tongne dine ngato di chakdang kegiore chakdang di kene ngato dungel nyongiore di takta yana
dire tare ngazo tanda na yonde gala yulngui yoban nangdo denang de tunang zanata zozo denang de gala dembe nawa sutu ginawa de ngazo shibuji lediore sutu ginawa de lebana jinji ngazo jende de gala ani kang ti wangita di dembrate me denzin lagor ten zimbatela denzin lagor wa tati pe di는 짐바든 짐바 친절로 오니 차디어로 와. 디 왕기 땅 가서 차당라 소바 끼고 와. 디디 딘지 머리 발랍 거래. 따가라래. 디 왕기 가서 되는 디 왕기 따 딘지 머리 보 왕기 차당 이제 차당 왕기 따 차당데 뇽몽으로 되어로 와. 셈럽도 마지와 체킨. 뇽몽 시디갈라 셈럽도 마지와 체킨. 셈 투퍼 체킨. 셈 날도 미네 체킨 지라 뇽몽 시기도 낭페. 오때 티 왕기 따 둥알 끼고 와. 랑초라 차. 에니 젠초라 당. 티 왕기 따페 둥알 나서 띵용고 따 띵고네레. 때따가나레.
And so actually, yes, it is indeed as you have said, and that is the view from the Prasangikas and that which we have been speaking about. It is because when we perceive outer objects, we are deceived. We are deceived in thinking that that the things that appear are just like they appear. And not only that, we take them to be truly real and existent and exactly like that in that way that they appear. So all of those things that are other, outside of ourselves, we cling to the true reality in them. And this actually is a very deluded and misguided view. We perceive them as very real and true and just as they are, or just as the situation appears. Because we really fixate to that, we're really fixed in this notion of this outer reality, now that we really suffer. It's because we see things as very true, and real out there, that we then, for example, develop attachment towards some things or preference towards some things, and aversion or even hatred towards other things. And these orientations, being averse to something, or liking something, preferring something, attached to something, are negative emotions, defiled emotions. And in the definition of what is an afflictive emotion or defiled emotion, it is that which arises in the mind, and then the mind becomes, it is not peaceful. Then the mind is disturbed, and a mind state that cannot be in its natural state. This is the definition of a negative emotion, that which upsets the mind, which steals away peace of mind, and that which does not allow the mind to remain in its actual natural state. And so, yes, these are negative emotions, and these negative emotions, for example, arise in a pattern. Anything that we feel like towards our side that would, from our own side, that will benefit us, we prefer it. Anything that we view as positive towards us is we're attached to. And then towards other, and then we are averse to. We generate feelings of aversion towards. And these are, again, negative mental states. And it is all from this perspective of self and other, and seeing a true reality in those things that appear to us. So yes, Geshe-la says it is exactly as you state.
덴진데 도야 탑실라 타와 덴중안에 라지메빌 타와도 숨로와 라진메빌 타와도 라진메빌 타와세가 나랑서 낭줄도 시거와 낭줄도 율문이 수도도 요와지 난기도와 데 나와데 까투 덴돈다레 덴 라지메빌 타와 숨고야데 디 카르체나 디인다베 ngazo nangzul ti wangi zembe nawate zember zembe denzin tigi genjenta krowa kurgorwa krowa le trail tapse chikpo tagarare songi tobe tawashiyade tongi shiyade rajime bel tawashiyade tate tapsede te kaya ke tapse te mata jenda wo ta jenda tablam ke omarta misba ke chmuchadi ore.
And so then how do we go about reversing this seeing appearances as true, fixating a true reality in appearances? So this is reversed through seeing the interdependent relationships of all phenomena, understanding their dependent arising, not their actual absolute existence in and of themselves from their own side, but that they possess dependent arising. They are relative phenomena. So it's very, very important that we hold the view, understand the view of interdependence, and then grasp that view, hold that notion as we are regarding phenomena, remembering that the way they appear is actually non-concordant with their true dependent reality, their dependent existence. And so that's the first thing. We need to remember the view of interdependence, that things are dependently arisen, but not the way they appear. And then we also must always remember that is based on our fixation to a true reality in things, based on that condition, that factor. Actually, that's the very cause of the turning of samsara, of being embroiled here in a cyclic existence, based on regarding things as a true reality. That's what perpetuates samsara. And so then how do we tear this down? How do we shatter this cycle? Actually, we free ourselves from this cycle through seeing emptiness. So when we see emptiness, that things actually possess no inherent true nature, they're free of this. This actually tears down the formerly held notion that things have a true reality. And this is how we upend cyclic existence. Actually, there's no other method to uphold cyclic existence but to see the emptiness of things.
이 군대다 이 임바다 이 송도 러번 파팔레고 우마 지게 발라 시베 사본 남시디 율남때 저율로스 율라다메 통나니 시베 사본 가버규르 송도 어디 가르서 거래 시베 사본 남시 세야데 간치 젬버진 빈진드레 시바티게 젬버진 유튜브도 나용도 갈라 다 디든 수든 징엔데 두바 이시드 차거와 디왕게 디왕다 율남때 이줄도 나는 나시집이 최단데 디기 롱초차 차디어레스 두바 이시드기 로와 율라 다메바 란시메바 다 다메베 돈다데 페미스 깨점버리 율라 란시메바 다메바지 통화 있나 된다왜 니베 딘진데 케두그레 시베 사번적인 그룹이 싸워적인 렘버진 딘진 메아 차두그레서 숨도.
And so Master Aryadeva also spoke about this, and let me get that exact.
시베 사본 남시데 율남때 저율로스 율라다메 통나니 시베 사본 가버규르스 이게 점버리데 아다 저는 기와다 렌틴 딘이어다.
So actually this this quote from Aryadeva in the 400 verses really is the answer to your question. And so for those of you who would like to actually see all this quote and all the quotes, they're on the IBC Facebook page, and they're on our Slack. They're on our Slack page. And so I'm not finding the exact quote the way I put it up before. So I will just paraphrase it, which is the seed of existence, which is this awareness. CP sabon yankerchik
시베 사본 남시데 율남때 저율로 율라다메 통나니 시베 사본 가버규르스.
That perceives once this awareness that is the seed of existence, sees that objects possess no self-nature, then this root of samsara is torn down, is shattered. And so here it says actually that the very root of existence is our awareness. And when we have this, when this awareness is focused in a way that is clinging to a true reality, that is what creates existence, cyclic existence. However, when it then sees emptiness, the lack of any existence in objects and outer phenomena, then it actually completely tears down samsara. And so in answer to your question, that quote from Aryadeva actually is the direct answer to your question. And perhaps I will repost that particular quote this week if it's helpful.
All right, thank you.
I have a question I've been kind of working on. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I also have a question later on.
Okay.
Yes, that question yeah.
That's all. Okay, so please ask maybe, yeah.
Sorry, we keep talking on.
Okay, William, how about you? You go first.
Okay. So we talk a lot about karma. And so this is a question about karma. And we use the metaphor of karma as a seed sometimes that ripens, and that the cause determines how it will ripen. But also, it is said, the Dalai Lama has said that it is necessary to have the proper conditions for the ripening as well. And so my question is can we, by changing the conditions in our environment or in our mind stream, alter the way that those seeds ripen, contain their results or negate their results, or, you know, have karma ripen, if we have a negative karma, have it ripen in a safe space, so to speak, like with a buffer around it.
Not so di legi kola mamposu kechichegi ore ani di le pena di sabun legi sabun minne dene drebu nyongi ore songedo dene legi gyune legi sabun gi gyu sabun gyune minne drebu nyongi ore yana samsam gyalwaram poche ki ani le Minya ke chedo gyudang ken ni tregore. Ani tribadire. Pena ani saban ki gyu sagne jela di ken ngatsu togne di ken gyorne pena chilola gi ken gyorne amena di sem nangi nangi ken ani gyorne pelcher drebu yang gyor tupki yona.
Tetarwada tetar muni chadiorwa. Karizana ngananzu le sidigala ngazu chawadrwa ngazu kari chawachigina. Le sidigala so action lagdo injinala. Chawadre ngazu chawachayade. Tati ngazu ni dus chilabina sawe gyucheginde mari pade chadiore mari pade chayonde mari pade ki ta ngaronzo zembarzimbe denjinderwa tarduna zembarzimba pe yulnguni pe kari thon pe ningjebu chit kari thona yulnguni yobaji ngazo nangore nangne ni tel chagor chani ta ngazo jedang kegi nanda chadang kegi chadang karikena de wangata chawadele gore chawadele lela gore susipe gewa lega kandis chibaina chawadele lela gore mato chawale los laser de zurdu yomarwa chesanti 녀몽 짱기도 와 깬데 머리 버지기도 와 유매마다 머리 버들이도 와 디디 왕경 아주 자와듯이 깬 초발 때니 자와듯이 연구하러 와
Ani ngato di gyusagne ken
규규다
matrena pena ngato di
깬데 마트나 용마러 와 배낭 아주 네 깜보지 출리라 말해봐 네 깜보레 누구당 두고민도 와 that just you can 망보지 처네 다 디부디 연구하러 와 다 ngaranzo jawa chebal tene chisu yankyur selen sepaga sol temne any the dibudi mingi orwa tetare you can kanga chogore you can you yana yan keman kenda talena dibudi mintu mare
laso pena kongitriwa pelcher didang ani dralwa ani yurvire pena ngato di lengempa sagne dene dijela dene shakpache amane chawa ani yapoche ani dene tekpa mache dene didang kyan gyorya nang shinre
tere kenda ti karzana ngazu dikpa chene lemsang gyopat kene shakpa chwa ina shakpa chena ko ngama 지 자와데 지 샤게데 레데 따빠와 레데 따송인다 딱 거기 깬다면 태요 말와
dene ngato pena drebu disegiana drebu nyong nayang ani dene shakpache
다 딜라 리바 치중레 이바 세메 레더부지나 샤바체 제바이난 따르게 풀롱다바나 진지 촉두지 끼게 열라거래 리바 창한 중은 뜻서 덴디요 말에 샤바체는 따로 거래
So when so first when we talk about karma, we need to look at what actually is the meaning of karma. Karma just means action. Action leads to, so it means to do something, to act, to do something, to perform an action. That is actually what karma means, to perform an action, the movement of an action. And so when we talk about causes, first, in speaking about causes, we should really look at the very fundamental cause, for example, of karma. And the fundamental cause is ignorance. And when we speak of this fundamental ignorance, what we're speaking about is the misguided perception of things as true and real and very ultimate. And actually, so that is the ultimate, ultimately, that's the root cause of negative karma, is ignorance. And it comes from clinging to a true reality. In other words, so how does that translate to like a real life, like to a situation? So we may see something as really attractive and then become attached to it, attracted to it, fixated with it, obsessed with it. Or we may see something as truly awful and become repulsed, have negative feelings towards it. And so when we act out in ways that are fixated and obsessed, then this is all backed. So this is karma. This is an action. We act out, and that's what karma means. This is action. And then if we have repulsion or hatred towards something, then this is also, and we act in that way, this is karma. This is action. And these actually, to have this repulsion or fixated desire, these are negative emotions. And again, the cause all comes down to ignorance. This root cause of seeing those things as those original things that we perceived or came in contact with, we regarded them as real, as really beautiful, as really awful. But can we manipulate the outcome of a karmic cause through working with conditions? So yes, we can. So for example, if you were to have the cause of a barley plant, which is a seed, so the seed of a barley plant, which is that cause, but we don't have the conditions, we don't give it the water, then it won't grow. And so we have manipulated the result. And so we can also do that with, and yes, it does. We do need both causes and conditions to get the ripening to come about. Because even if the cause is present, if the cause doesn't meet with the conditions, there is not a ripening, and therefore there is not that fruition. And so we need the cause and the condition. But can something ripen can we again manipulate that? So we spoke about the barley seed and manipulating it so it didn't ripen into a barley plant. But in the same way, if we've committed a negativity and we immediately regret it, we immediately confess it and regret it. For example, we can purify it so that the negative effect from that negative karma actually does not come to ripen, because we have purified it, and therefore it doesn't have the conditions to ripen. However, there are some actions that, or some karmas that have, we have their karmic causes already in place, but we cannot manipulate them so they don't ripen. For example, we have the 5 like heinous crimes or actions. So very, very deep, serious actions, such as, you know, killing one's mother and father and so forth, that cannot be completely, they cannot be purified so that they won't ripen.
답 가르쳐 체메기 레일서 보이나 냐와 유능분 내모가지 큐크지마도 이 레지 톱쳐 보인사 큐크지 이 레기 내미왕기 따르게 폴롱다바나지 가서 풋볼세데 풋볼도 싸다바이나 큐크니야 파르도 거와 어떤지 이게 연락이 오래 엄마도
Contatista pomando 카레난지
가서 풋볼 세기도 바스켓볼 세디가라 풋볼 싸 답기도
basketball.
답답는사야 야 파르고도
Lasso.
어떤지 큐크지 냐와 끼기 연락을 샤바제나야 세메기 레이나 엄마도 젠달라 배 텐디 온거 말아 배때가 따도 거래
Lasso.
세메 레데 하장 레 지고 잡으러 와 레와 그랬잖아 파세바 마세바 디신샤베 꿀랑 안섬기 타중와 나좀 바세바스디가라다 뭐네 파마드 깨완디기다 까진 체쇼 륜진베 까진 체쇼데 땡이서자이나 텔리디바 체주요 말와 틴디가라 뺑이 받좀 물어와 어디 틴디지 인디가라 네바 쳔비 탑진 네바데 따베 샤바제바이나 잡잡제가 된도와 샤뱅님도 뜸주고는 샤바제네 촉주지 끼기 연락을 이나 네 샤바제비 둘에 유능모 내고 말했다. 대마다 냐외 세세 빼 유능 보러 어다 때리 되니 लेकिन दिबुस चिकांग दांग लारन दो ले क्या पाले
Legi.
ले क्या लेकिन दिबुस चिकांग दांग ता ले कांचो किला ले पा मांगबो यरवा जो थोमा में बन से जादा ले खांग दियो ngacho किला ची मैं सम तंगियो मारे ngaran so hamako le pe pal palanyan de kyo ko de gyurin de kyo le khang de ngacho kila जो थोमा में बन साशो के सिंगना ने ये लारो
Karinangjin?
Shina la shing mangbo.
Oh, that's so.
Oh, that in the le ngazugila lipe mangbo. Jeza, that candice mingires the gala, so compa kang shu che. Le the kang jigo tie. Tingun mingire labre. Lekin dibu chikang dance, chiwa zane, jigo tabo, any be
Oh, that's so.
Jungun Jusum Chatan Sandegende, Le Chiware. Dipa inanda, Gawa inanda. Lekin dibu chikanda, Newa kanda, Compagan Sedigala, Newa Sedigala, Susula, Compashu Chumbu Yendege. Any Compa Yendegende, Marcheka in Tatani, Tomani to Mimber Guruzeda. Any Lady Jigot Sabo, Rana Compashu Chumbu Yoken. Any be Lady Tina, Tingun Mingire Lave. The Rimbe, the Kang la Comshu Chay and then any ladies can't tap Chay and then the Namin the only Mingire Labre. The Peck Ketchumberidua. Midi and do it see the don't go on that Tirindanga Kurtu breathing. Kazantazunga Kurtumasanga the Porte.
Oh, that's so.
Hanging it did do it see the tin Kurko. Lake in the wood Chiganda. Newa kanda komba kang ngarche kain tadani thomani to member kirus.
And so when we talk about the 5 heinous acts, these are actions when we're speaking about karmic results, actually that will bring about the result very quickly. Actually, one cannot purify them. And when it comes to experience the result of that very, very serious negative karma, one will experience it very quickly. Just like, for example, when we're dribbling or bouncing a ball, like as soon as you hit it, like it bounces right back up. And that's how quickly one will experience the negative results of a very, very heavy karma. So experience the hell realms, for example. And when we talk about these 5 unredeemable acts, they are to kill one's father, to kill one's mother, to kill an arhat, a noble being, or to draw the blood of a Buddha. These are very, very serious downfalls with really serious consequences. And however, so they cannot be fully purified. So we cannot manipulate this karma, change this karma due to conditions. But we can alter it in the way that through confession and through regretting, then the negative experience, the negative ripening, for example, experiences of the hell realms will be short. They will not be for long. And so when we talk about the effect of our actions, actually the karmas that we have committed, we can't really know them all because we have been accruing actions since time without beginning, or karmas. We've been acting since time without beginning. And so there's really no way for us to know all of those karmas. It's said actually in the scriptures that our formerly accrued karmas are so many, it's like the woods in a vast, thick forest of all the trunks, the wood in a vast and thick forest. And it's also said that these karmas possess a very heavy weight. They are very heavy and serious karmas, especially if we have all three aspects of committing a karma complete. For example, the karma has been premeditated, the karma has been like completely, one hasn't just tried, like the act has been completely committed. And then in the end, there has been recognition that the act is now finished. If all three of those steps are complete, whether actually it's a virtue or non-virtue, it's said to really now hold weight. These are like very, they're very serious or very, they now hold their full weight. So be it positive or negative. And it's also said, and Geshe-la said he can send me this quote that said that if one has young Geshe-la.
Lekin dibu chikang tang, nyewa kang tang, kompa kang, ngarche kang tatani, tomani to me parkurs, ngama chegende, ta lekin dibu jigo sabo ina, lady jigo sabo dang, any chiwa ina, any take on a kompa, sentanyebo kompa in the game. Then anything will mingre lag.
And what's said here in this text is when there has been an act committed in regard to the ripening effect, if it's something that is a very heavy karma and has been done by someone who has really habituated this negativity, this is sure to ripen, and sure to ripen, for example, in a suffering in the hell realms. And so basically what's, being said here is for, these very weighty karmas, again, in regard to how this lines up with your question, then one is sure to experience that result no matter what.
Leila Sazul Goni Giore, Tezo Shiguade Ketchpure.
And so therefore, we must really be guarded, be very, very careful in, any of our actions and whatever we do, because they have an effect. Everything that we do has a consequence. And also we could study, and as Geshe-la said, it's important to know the different ways that things can ripen. There are like the 4 ripening effects of karma.
Leila Sazul Goni Giore, Jela Masapa, Sala Macheba, Masa Macheba, Chesa Tangwazade. Jela Masapa, Sala Macheba, Masa Macheba, Chesa Tangwa. Yip Jungsong.
Ani shipati kare.
Chesa Tangwa. Tangwa.
And so, like these 4 different dynamics of karma. So there are, the first category is, although the karma, an action was done, but a karma was not accrued. The second one, salamachepa, a karma was accrued, although one did not commit the action. Masamachepa sana?
Masa Machepa, Lede Masa, Lede Jaya Mache, Lede Sang Yomare, Masa Machepa.
And that one does not accrue a karma because there was not the full commitment of the act. So it's neither accrued nor considered like a completed act. Chetsa Sangwa. And that one has completely committed and completely accrued. Those are all complete. Shipade. And the 4th category, that it's considered a completely committed act and that one has completely accrued the karma, that's the heaviest. Holds the heaviest weight as far as being full on done and then having full on consequences related to that act.
다 제일 마사빌레디 파마자와친 예겐 아니베 세민딩니 로브둘레 펜부 펜도던달라 불로블라 장주 펜셈 군nelana 불로블로 토좀 받대 때죠 레데 지기어 또또 룽기어와 니거와 이나 고 펜셈 군니 라용도가라 디기 펜베 왕기 펜셈 펜베셈 디기 고 레데 사고 말에 레데 제나양 레데 사고 말에 신지 텐데
So the first one, an action was done, but no karma was accrued, no karma was accumulated, is, for example, when parents reprimand their children and need to kind of harshly do so, or when a teacher really wishes, really out of great love for their students and really want them to learn, might be very harsh and sometimes even hit, like a lopan might, like really like hit their student to try to get them back on track. Even though they've done that action, even though they've struck their student, they actually do it out of great concern and great wish to help that student, to be of benefit from them. So it's come from a mind of benefit, not a mind of anger or wish to harm, and therefore a negative karma is not accrued.
다 살마지 바데 다 응어서 디 심진 세게 돈달라 심진 소총지기도 심진 세게 돈달라 소총지들 다 레디 무지데 제마 스티 마도다 용고 마라 소야도 로 징아투 만타 소구거라
Parela?
심진 세게 돈달라 심진 세게 돈달라 시 돈달라 세기or 소구거라 심진라 배 차당 그배 칼라튼 소구거라 오다 때그때 레데 유고 세디 마다 레데 두고 마르데 제요 마르데 테 포루텔라 로 징아 다와 주초가 텐데 소이린다 레 사기or 레데 제요 마레 살라 마치 바세 오데트리 세셈 꾸네라네타 심진 소야데 오다 때 때기드레 답
And so in the second category, one has not actually committed an action, but one accrues the karma for that. So for example, when we talk about ranchers and people that take care of cattle, and actually they care for them only because they know that after some period of time, after some months or a year or a couple of years, that animal will have grown and matured enough for it to be slaughtered. And they just simply want to give it the best, food and water to help it grow, just so that they can bring it to that point to go to the slaughterhouse, or go to be killed, to be slaughtered. And so even though they're actually like taking care of them, they accrue the action that's accumulated or that's related to their slaughter. And so this is the second category. They haven't actually committed the act, and yet they accrue the karma. Ani kare masang.
다 심진 세야데 전부 찾아버도 쏘고거라. 달 세티다 무이지 두고아래. 데 마세 버도다 로이날 다와이난다. 데 레데 사데 거르데 리징 의주도 두비어 말해.
콘서트.
레데 산데 거고 심진 세야가 돈달로 쏘고요 인상 디기 레데 사게 거래. 알마치 바세 데트리. 리지 의지 마체 인상 살마치 바스.
las ngoshi machesa.
무지지 소왕가요 말아 무지지는 소왕가 걸어와.
And so what we point out here, so before we talked about those like a different those different things related to committing a karma, where we need to have the plan to do it, to actually do it and commit it, and then actually the concluding stages of recognizing it done. So actually they don't have that middle part. They don't actually do the killing. They don't do the main action, those that care for the cattle and feed them just so they get, just ripe for the picking, so to speak. They don't actually do the slaughtering themselves, and yet they accrue, that karma because they were, that was why they were caring for them.
다 마사 마제 바데들이 말한서 젠라 네셈 가르서 젠라 다 너베게고서 삼루 중어다 애니 렘상 때마타도 교베셀이나 아니 교베셀된 교바왕 교베 교바중 왕게 고따로 와라 레데 무진제요 말아 레데 사가요 말에 레데 제단요 말에 무지마도 인상 레제요 말에 레데 교바티기 셀손 인상 다손레 레데 오다 마사 마지 바테테리
Consulting nöpa kenaya.
너바 땅 곰베왕게 있다 겨왕만 가서 미도 저 곰바슈 춤보러 와다 곰바슈 춤보 되가라 곰바 렘상 렌셈데 지케바이나 때마다도 수승 덴시기 진지 덴디 민도 산데 겨슴지니 샤바지니 렌 진도디가라 레데 따로 와라 오다 덴도와 진지데 마사마체 빌레데.
And so this third category of a karma is not accrued, and it's not considered that an action has been committed. And so what would a scenario that fits this category look like? So this is, for example, when someone does something negative, but right away regrets it. And so, for example, there are things that, for example, someone is just so habituated to it, they do something, it slips out, they've just become habituated to it, and they do it without thinking, and immediately they said, oh my God, what did I do? And they recognize it. At first, they just weren't mindful and did the wrong thing, said the wrong thing, right away said, oh my goodness, oh gosh, what did I do? Not good, I'm sorry. And so in that way, this is then purified. This is kind of nullified. And therefore it's considered karma that's not accrued in an action that wasn't really fully committed because they weren't intending to do it. It slipped out of habituation, autopilot, and not realizing what one was doing and immediately catching oneself and saying that was the wrong thing. Ani shipa ki pe ne karela yeshila penaje
masa macheba
de chetsa sangwa
제사 상와데 따들이 배나 레디 구마게게나 소소 레지게나 레디 제니 아니 다 당보 레디 semjenda진 녀이나다 랑라 요베 semjena 디총 세 시수 아니베 원진 잡베거나 어떤 디소 제네 이 침베거네 지수이나 제지어와 디 창나 제사 상와 차대요 레근 위지 두브레 semjenada minanda tesetsare kulong pembata potare sisu ene pe jisu ina ngunjinda be soltana tape yabujung son labare samare jorngun jusum chasang sam degende jesa samwele tatel jigo sabare.
And so now this fourth category of the karma was committed, it was full, it's a full karma, full karmic act. and so what this is, and we spoke about the 3 parts of karma that need to be complete, and this one has an additional stage. So let's say someone is planning, so someone kills someone else, someone takes life, someone commits murder. They have the motivation and the plan to do it. They do it. And then afterwards, they complete it. It is a done act. They complete it, recognize they did it, and then actually they rejoice. They're glad that they did it. They said, great, it's a done deal. And so if that's the case, then this is a complete karmic act and a complete accruement of karma. And so those are the 4. And one should just remember, good to know those different levels of how involved in the karma and how full of a karmic act it is. And so it would be really good for us to know those 4 so that we can identify our level of involvement, or just look at action and understand what makes something a full level of involvement, or a lighter level of involvement. So when it comes to negative things and non-virtue, actually, this is very, very easy for us to fall into. And this is because our karmic tendencies really afford us a lot of opportunity there, because it's something that we've been doing for so long. It actually is our tendency. This is kind of our natural tendency. We naturally tend to do these things, very easy for us to do. But then, we can examine, are the 3 steps complete? Was the intention there? Was the main act really committed? And, was it finished and recognized that it was done? Or was it really a full karmic act? Was there intent to commit the act, committing of the act, and recognition of that? If all 3 are not complete, so in other words, for example, if we did something on accident, didn't mean it, all 3 wouldn't be complete, and therefore it would be a lighter karmic impact, a karmic accruement. So really a lot rides on intention, not solely on the action itself, but on intention. And so, for example, we could be going about our way and kill something, even like a little bug. But right away, if we see that and say, oh my goodness, what did I do? I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it. And that's, really being remorseful and regretting that we did it, then that changes the karma. That works with the karma that is accrued at that time. Yang kerchik sono kontak yapo.
So gedi kebar mashi jene Buddha tende se shagena.
Oh laso.
Mashi bachiba chibata gyobe sewate to le dos le yang tang duguare. 디바야 마르달라가 마르 디바데 충고요. 다들.
Mhm. And so, for example, that category of the karma is not accrued, although an action was done. That's, for example, when we do something accidentally, we don't mean to, but we've caused harm, we've caused hurt when we've not meant to. In that example, for when we might step on or sit on a bug or something, it wasn't intended. And so it's lighter. It's a lighter karmic accruement. Not to say, though, that it's not a negative act, that, there's no negativity, that it wasn't harmful, that there was no negative act. It's just a lighter negativity.
Yeah,
Did that answer your question, William?
Yeah, that 추정 아빠진송 계속 비문하기인데.
Should we take our break here? It's almost 5 o'clock.
Diane,
Mm-hmm.
even before the break, I have a quick question continuing the karma discussion. And would Geshe-la talk a bit about how motivation can affect the karmic results? Let's say, for example, even the most heinous result of killing your father. Let's say your father is Hitler, and you know that he is going to commit all these horrible acts, and as a result, you kill him. All the steps are present.
Mm-hmm.
It's my understanding that the motivation, you may still end up in the hell realm, but because of that motivation, you may be there for a lesser time. Would Geshe-la talk a little bit about how motivation affects karmic results?
Mm-hmm.
And can do it after the break if we want.
Okay. Ani chibudire, ani kerang tanda, ani jalan gyapna tigere yamena di parsenge jela, jalan gyapna yang digi, ani digi yore. Pena ngatso di kunlong di drebu, ngatso di kunlong di drebu la yang, ani drel, Dralpate korla sonroche pena di pa seya dene ngone di le jigo sabore yena yang pena ngat ani pa di Hitler ani yena pena Hitler sana di mi pe mangpo seken gimi ani dinte de hakone pasena tene jela drebo nyong ani pena ngone chena sosoki kunlong di peyapo ye pasena tene senchen pe mampo ani pentogi ore kangen hako sange gena
Yeah, cos.
tene di drebo ani pena ani jorngu shi sum sangna kunlong yapo yutsang ani pena nyelwa lak ani kena pelcher ani kunlong ne ani jigo sabo gi drebu ani nyongi yorsamare de korla sungroche
Oh, yeah.
tanda yamana jelala.
그래서 비문하기민들라.
Geshe-la, so I asked Geshe-la if he's going to say if he would like to answer now or later, and he's saying, aren't your knees sore? So should we take maybe
later? It's fine. Let's tea break and
Okay.
get back to that.
Okay. And I know we had another question too after the break. Ani kandre shuya shuken shendak chikyang
Yeah.
yorela.
이거를 그야 말해.
Okay. So after the break.
가서
How long is the break? How long is the break?
10 or 15 minutes usually.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Exactly.
did your dog come to see? Hi, baby.
She's becoming a little Bodhisattva of her own. She comes to all the teachings. Sometimes I turn the camera off because she's roaming around or
Oh.
cute and distracting. But she's attended many Dharma talks now.
What's her name?
This is Abby.
Hi, Abby. Hi, honey. Oh, she loves her mommy.
Yeah, I adopted her from the animal shelter last year, and she's so sweet. She's an older dog, but she's so lovable.
Nice.
And she's a good meditation buddy.
She like to come see all of us.
Yeah. Abby, say hi to Geshe-la.
Hi, honey. That's nice.
Yeah, she's
That's
very
sweet. How long had she been in the shelter, Lisa? Do you know?
She'd been I adopted her almost exactly a year ago. I will have had her in a week. I will have had her for a year. And She had been in the shelter 2 years before that and was adopted by a family that abused her. And the animal shelter found her loose. One of her ears was permanently like curled down because they had let her get a bad infection and hadn't treated it. And her tail is broken, so she's got a tail that hooks. And she had patches of fur missing from her body when we adopted her, but now she's very healthy and happy and lovable.
Pena ani geshala morang di dapo mepegi shaksane.
Hala.
Ani nyurpare or lempare. Ngoma gi dapo di ani yapo how to say tache yomare.
Hala.
Yapo tache masong. Pena ani dong dang. Yeah, yapo. Yeah.
She's very happy and healthy now.
That's good.
We think she's about 9 or 10 years, maybe 10 years old, is what the vet said. I went to adopt a puppy and I fell in love with her.
Yeah, she's really sweet. She doesn't look very old.
No, she acts very young, but she
Yeah.
has old teeth. She has she has some, the vet and the animal shelter both said she's probably about 9 or 10 years old, or 10 now probably. But yeah, she's very sweet.
Yes, you can tell she's attached. She likes you. She's attached to you.
I like her.
Wow. It's a happy ending. That's a good happy ending.
She's become my yoga mascot. I teach yoga every morning, and because of COVID, I have to, do it from home now. And so she's got her own little yoga mat. She lays down and greets the class, and she'll stay there for the whole hour while I'm doing yoga. She'll just stay.
Nice. Well, that's good. That's good imprints for this life, right?
Yeah. She's a sweetie.
Yeah. It's kind of nice with the older animals. They are more settled. With a puppy, a younger animal, they would be running around and jumping, which is also fun, but the older animals, they're good companions.
Yeah, she's really, really wonderful. We had a dog, we adopted another dog 18 years ago that lived to over 17 years of age. So she was with us when we adopted our previous dog as a puppy. And I knew right away I wanted to make a home for another dog, but this one just stole my heart. She's so
nice,
so sweet.
So she's kind of a year ago, kind of a pandemic puppy.
She is a pandemic puppy. Yeah, we adopted her 2 weeks before Indiana went into a lockdown with everything shut down. So it was great timing to have company at home and to have her get lots of attention. And I work completely from home right now, so she gets lots and lots of attention.
No, do you think I think so. Out here. The summer Sangyuna. Wasn't share any summer any let wasn't share that's Kalikapu yore. Dutso zona. Mikashe let me bedragishla.
Oh, yeah.
Detended Yomare. I don't know if everyone is back. Also, so I did find that quote, so maybe I'll read it, because before, some time ago, Geshe-la had given this quote by Aryadeva. The Sipe Saba Namshite Yulnam de. Yeah. So the awareness, and I think this was in response to answering, it really was the one that answered the question I think that Stephen asked. The awareness that is the seed of existence has objects as its sphere of activity. When selflessness is seen in objects, the seed of existence is destroyed. Okay, Geshe-la sent it. Good.
네 디디 라인 탄송 타마송 우마 탕규일로라 다음에 비 돈다데 우마 지게벤 대화지가래 띵은 탄송 타마송 하고민도
Kare Dangma-san. Dangma-dang.
지게벤 텔라 다지 자와나 간식 오분님 기전라 라말레베 모 라진데 데메파나 다메파오 디니 최단 간사게 다메파 니데 취기 다메파네 간사게 다메파 자오 생지 치지어 띵은 물로 땅에는 하고민도 쟁민도 네
Okay.
상당고
Lasso.
티페 야버데 카르즈나 우마 탕규일로라 간사가 다음에 취기 다음에니 동지고는 만은 가지고는 켜버려 말아 오다 티기다 간사가 다음에 세야데 동지 간사가 탄도 란징기 투바 카베 카바이나 덴버메바 토벨로데 간사가 다음에 다 아니 지풍소가 탄도 동인 다 란지메바 토바데 취기 다음에 자거라 오다 티기 톤다데 지갑은 데와데 빼야버디 텔라 라지 자와니 간지 오보는 기 젤라라 말레베 오 란진데 수숭다 오보는 기 젤라라 말레바 수투도 요바다 때 수투도 요바 티 카베 이 간테 란지메바지 또이나 티 아니 다 란지메베 톤데 테레스 테메페나 다메 파스 간지 오보는 기 젤라라 말레베 라말레베 오데 란진데 테메바나 다메 바오스 데라 간사가 다메 바다 취기 다메 바스 다 간사가 다메데 간사가 당도 데 란징메 바다야당 아니 취데데 풍속에 당도 취전 용거로 오다 텔라가 네 상인티니 꾸르고
Okay, lasso.
자나 테니 콘자 기루 먹었다 야
So Geshe-la was just telling me that he has a forthcoming quote that he will send that goes back to that question about would it be correct to say that our suffering comes from seeing existence in things and therefore developing relationships with them or interacting with them in a way that brings us suffering. And so Geshe-la said there's a quote related in a commentary on the 400 verses that he will send that really speak directly to that and speak directly towards seeing into the lack of or selflessness. So seeing the selflessness of both the person, of an individual, and selflessness of phenomena. So he'll get that out during the week. So I think we had, and Geshe-la said it's fine to continue to ask questions, but I think we still have the answer for Diane's question. Last.
So, Jina, Kunonda Shuji, that number choice Hidigala, Denani, Tejan Bichidi. So, Gacha Kupas Tago, the Pay Missibu Kachimori. Gacha, Jina,
Gacha,
Gacha the Guba. Pendo Kang Chendu, no Tsap Kang Chendu, no Tsap Chembo in a Pento Chunjumena, no Tsap Chembo de 조제거래. 펜도 체에 너잡 춘춘주만에면나 펜도도 조제거래. 펜바데. 가자도 거바 또 두스다니 징을 떡일 로야래. 타지도 니리세요 말에. 다 이나 굴로나 시부지 펜 내가 첨부하라. 굴롱고 돈이 대번이지 쟁기미나 둥둥 세버와. 세버레데 대번이지 쟁기미나 둥둥 세디가라 가래 마세나 대번이지 미나 둥둥기 송봉하게 세기와래 아니 디 왕게 미나 둥둥 코랑 엠베 냐와기 거래 디 땅아 냐와키나 키 대번이지 제 코랑 로다네 그 미ingab게 그 속게야 된다라 nga 냐와키나 키스 ngape 디 내민데 nga 뇨나 디기도 아니 그 미ingab게 내민데당 코랑페 유니링보지 냐와 데모지 제 덴디지 굴론다는 미난 때문이지 진 기미난 돈도 세용도 갈라 그 펜셈 군네라도 세샤도 갈라 콜레 레드 사요 마라 알 땅보 내민용 주 파자 덴디기 굴론라 덴디어 다도 디앙 강가자래요 말다 세민 딩니 오니 가자도 그바 통네 두잖아 펜도도 연구하다 때리 다 힐러 라보이나 힐러 제서 마운트도 제서 미망부 라버지기 어와 다티 펜셈 군을라네 코세바이나 코미치 세바레 솔렌테 포그르데 잠바 미망부 소큐 고라 가자도 고발탄 루다 jalkap sungye tondala mami zuguda kopach mboyarwa jalkate mami mena jalkap konompe 야부용고 말와 어떻게 찍바래 망조 양 답에 망조 지단 낭비 취기 개정이 낭비 취기 룸지디 8천 라버리 가자 고발텐 루기래
So now we go back to answering the previous question about motivation, or for example, like killing, when actually your killing is backed with a motivation to help others that would be harmed if one did not intervene. And so when actually, especially when it comes to the Mahayana, the great vehicle in Buddhism, motivation is really is principle. And so when we look at a situation when we might need to step in and do something like an intervention, we first must look and look at the equation of help versus harm. Is the harm that is done greater than the benefit that comes from it, or is the benefit greater than the harm that one will do? And that's very, very important. And then if actually the benefit will be far outweigh like the small harm that will be done, then it is said, then it is, that it's preferable to actually intervene and do something. And so motivation is very, very related here, very relevant. It's not just the action itself, but the motivation behind it. And if one from the depths of their heart is intervening in some kind of a way that would bring some harm, but on a bigger plane bring much more help, then it's said that it, for example, should be done. And so there is the story that comes from like one of the Buddha's past lives, where there was this was this person on a boat where the ship captain actually was planning to kill everyone on the boat, 500 people. He was going to pilfer and pirate and so forth, and he planned to kill everyone on the boat. And so so this person knew this previous incarnation of the Buddha knew this, and he thought, well, if I let him, this ship captain, kill all of these people, he will go to hell for a very long time, and he will kill 500 people. And so therefore, out of compassion, he thought, I need to kill this person to save him from that terrible karma and all of that suffering in the hell realms. And I know that by killing him, I will also have to go to the hell realms, but that's okay. I will take that on in order to save all of those people and save him from also all of that suffering karma. And so he didn't really want to, he wasn't doing it because he wanted to hurt someone. He actually committed murder because he wanted to help and he wanted to save all of those people. And therefore, as it's taught, he didn't accrue any bad karma through that. And so what really one needs to weigh is, what's being lost and what's being gained. And that's a very, very important equation. And one absolutely must be coming from the depths of one's heart, from an altruistic motivation to do this. And, we look at other situations where sometimes a few are harmed to save many. And even countries, for example, need to have an army and need to have wars and sometimes fight in order to protect the vast number of people that are living in that country. And so this also works along, with the way, the Buddhist, the Mahayana vehicle, the same equation that, there may be a few that are harmed, but it's for the greater good. When it's for the greater good, then this is something that we need to do.
Anchipo dikpa solenj samudaya da gyalkhap sungkyo jeda gyalkhap te le tangbaina ta tem tenzawangin digo mare ta susu le tangur de susu le tang gyalkhap sungkyo jeda ten tamyare.
And so, for example, if one is, working to protect one's country, one isn't out there, for example, in war or, in, protecting one's country and fighting for oneself. It's not for self-interest and it's not for oneself, but one knows that one is doing this for the greater good of the population, for the protection of the country. This is a very, very different thing. It's very different motivation.
Kanja pe shordu gala pe dan gemi ngabjungru ma gyad gala tina taba mumbu yore serma azde ta taba zuta ngoni 시간 로던 라보렌 된 냠뇽니 요 말어 맨다니 geb시고 말어 이나 열급 숨겨둔 달 침바로 그 설마시고 다더니 수수지 볼에 열급 더 개체 가져 펜도체 여와 그래서 직 가서와래 말은 디바 요 말데 섬고 말다 디바 요다 하고 거래 이나 열급도 좋으래와 wada tenan shinji chene ta ngone michi yang mimongpo labar chegenta mao tuji zo se hiller ze so se ta tendigi hiller ze so se mao tuji ze so se Saddam Hussein ze so se teso mimongpo lo pe kyunja gegora
Mao Zedong
Mao Zedong mao tuji lagdo wada teso mimongpo lagar te michi se patedang mi mongbo se juna michi se de dipa chung yorwa dipa yo marze labgo marta dipa te yore tos chung yore da kunong ni chanju isem gilden ji na 파저 디바 용가요 말에. 다디 수수군롱 펜파 슈치 중 나라 개발 전부 알아. 데레다. 갈카 돈달라 수수 르 당주르다 디 잡아 인민 까져요 말다.
Yes.
다르두나.
And so, for example, when it comes to needing to fight to protect the country, you know, even there was like the monastic army called the Yellow Army, so like the yellow robes. So when actually monks needed to take up arms and, you know, fight in the uprising in 1959 against the Chinese forces and the Chinese army. And so they fought to protect their country. And actually they weren't very experienced and didn't really know how to use the arms and guns and so forth. But they thought that more important than, you know, just myself, this action isn't for myself, it's for a bigger reason, it's to protect my country. And so they did. Even the monks, the Yellow Army, they took up arms and they fought against the Chinese. And so their motivation was to protect their country. And so they had a good motivation. And so, you know, there was good motivation. And so therefore, like not as heavy of a karma as when we wish to kill someone and wish, you know, to bring harm upon someone. But that's not to say there was no negativity, even to be in a war. The killing and harm that's committed through being in a war is negativity. But again, motivation really modifies really the impact and of what's being like accrued, what's being done, and what's being karmically accrued. So, you know, for example, you know, we had these people within history, Hitler, Mao Zedong, and others who have really harmed the masses. And so to take one of them out, to kill one of them, you know, even though, you know, even it would save many lives, but still, you know, there is still negativity being committed when you were to kill someone like, you know, we mentioned earlier, Hitler, but the karmic accruement or the negative weight of that karma would be much lower. And of course, for a full bodhisattva, someone who has genuine bodhicitta, then this is not commit, someone with full bodhicitta does not commit a downfall at all. There is no negativity accrued. Any other questions?
Yes, I had one question.
Okay.
Are you able to hear me, Diane?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. So all these the questions that William asked and somebody else also asked before, they all have to do with karma and the result of that karma, how much we pay for it or how much we reap the benefits, whether it's depending on the motivation, good or bad. An amount of karma is accruing to the doer. Now, in this world of samsara, not only are we doing these actions, performing these karmas, but we are also witnesses to the karmas of others. For example, especially if it's a good karma that some great soul performs, we all have that innate sense of appreciation. And we say, oh, he is a great soul, he is doing this, and may the divine protect him and help him. So we are praying and we are blessing and all that. But on the other side of the spectrum is also the actions of others that we are witnessing, which are cruel. Maybe cruelty to a fellow human being, cruelty to the animals, cruelty to the nature. So in all those situations where we are the witness, in a practical life example, the whole point of all these scriptures and learning is to be of an equanimous mind, so that no agitation suffers us to lose our balance. But when we are not the perpetrators, but we are the witnesses of such crimes or cruelty, even in our mind, what is that practice that will keep that equanimity without being judgmental, without screaming, without being aghast at somebody's misfortune or that the person is doing? How is it that one should view that person or that situation? I'm not talking about, do we go up with a knife and kill somebody and are we justified? I'm saying, in my mind, I do not want that person's action to be the determining, like the switch that throws me up and down this spiral of, I hate what he's doing, I just don't appreciate all the blah blah chatter. How does one stop that? Being a witness.
Ani kerang di le dang legi dribble ani member ki kola mampo songs ani pena di le chick sagne dribble kare ani nyongire. Some ani pena ngato di chepapo menayang mi shandaki lega di tongne ngato ki samla samsam yang ani gyor drogiore pena di mi pe yapo ani lega pe yapo chik che tongne o di pe yapore di mi di dingone yapore ani kongi lega di la nga garden tempo yin semlo di nangshen kogi ore yena yang chok shendak chikla samsam di tongne pena mi duktsap chen pena mi shendak dongna yamena semchen la dongna ani pena ngato di chirola di nature nerpa chene ngato di tongne samsam sem gyor drogire yana yang pe dukshere di digi yomare ngato sem yang ani gyore yore yana yang di chirla ngato sama la tongyam ani gomgore yana yang mi ani dekpa chan duksap chen tongne kandres of di pe ani dukshere yewa mache ya ki yongwe ki chetu kari chegore pena ngato mixel ki tapshi mena samsam ngato yang ngato gi sam gyor samsam yar samsam mar o di pe yapore o di pe dukshere ngato di sam di yar ma droya mayong we ki chetu tangnyom ani gomya ki chetu kari chegore di serpo yana
re tatire le sidigala china egevele yore migevele yore ni yore samdang kore egevele sidigala ta ingir ta migewa mi jenji migewa chigina tela ngato jisu iran chigina sosola nyepa jisu iran chibiti nyepa lebgorta soso 미고알 지수 이란잖아. 소시체고 말아 인지민지. 미고알 지수 이란잖아. 때 거의 리베 소지 소소란 톱고 포고 와래. 그래서 삽삽적으로 빽빽하게 간제 미고알 지수 이란잖아. 이 야보 말해. 가발 지수 이란잖아. 때 야보래. 소자 가와 톱고 와라. 뭐다 로 땅념 고메야 돼. 그 미세베게 첨보래. 땅념 종이나 단당 아주 당념 중을라 당보 차당이라 니미스 통구도 지단단도 차이라 니미스 통이나 랑초라 차베거네 Any Chabaki gore, Jinjala, Dangone, Jenla Dangone, any Jidanki gore, Dini like Gun to Tatuina, Dini Lotanium the Tugre. The Lotanium the Tubina, Kibrakariore, Gava Kandijina, Gavade, Yantabajin Dugore. Vibi Cholan Royala, Toso, Ninga the Chungore. Migo
So,
or Suzigula,
Susagula.
Lotanium the truth to be enough. Did I catch more Lotanium to be other? In that, Lotanium to be other, Karsa Tanda di Semejinani, Tangum Seme the Jugudua, Yuguranda. That's Susu Yamin Chigila, Wom Gapugala, Tangum Seme the Mula Gumguare. Monichena. And Yundi Menga Vinani, Vindela, Tinan, Tambo, Yunemenga, Marshi Tintin Gomala, Tambo, Simjan Tanja Mashebala, Lotangum the Tuguare. Ti Lame Menga Resiguare, a Pagina Vinala Yomarde, Lamage, a Sungletenity, Guguare. And if Ajin Jebekabduina, Lotangum Mula Tuguare. Tinga Lame Mengal, Tuletene Kogu, Lagore, Induranda.
Las,
Miss Ketchambore.
Las pena nato di sanctuary pena di sarcher la ani tongne dene di pe kang el tempo pena mid dikpa chen ki kola hakone dene some nato young ani lunglang young yore di mayong we ki chedu
The Mayo Cheduta, Zola Lu Control the Tegeti Nimitis, Tambo Samopang Gudo. Migu Semgis Nimiti. Gun the Toina. Dini, then they toso card. Then Lemsang Yoda Yomarda, Kale Locombeongi, younger mother, Lemsang did Tabshin Diris the back harbor. Can't you tell a gun to tower, gun to Toina? Dini Kale Ergen to Gure.
laso ani taga nangshin morang di pena mar dang yar dene di neto pe apo chick ani tongne di semgi gyu pe apo re beta gyore di mayong weke chedo nika ani mar dang yar
What they all Tangum the two weather catchambores. Karzang also me ranjin shika the Gur Chocha Chagorwa, me tempo marwa. Tangum be nante tos tempo Sidena Masona Yabu Chagore. Kanje Miguela Kundu Tong, Egawala Yuntendo Tambutema Tong Kundi. Tingy Tongu water in Guranda. Egawi Yuntenda Migu Kundi Tongina. Matuman say Migu me and be not such a way, power is the Lagura. Me Mambola pe Tuzanji Jigana Tipe, Yabur is the Lagura. Chidan take Arjana, go Migu Kun the Maton in the Koyabur Lagura.
oh
Kun the Toina, the Yabur Swin Lagumarwa. At the Kanta some Jikigua. Jazangato Ingu Mama the Terry, Miguel Dushebazamaima, Miguel Kun Chunchin, Kun Najina, take it there, Kun the Tane, Chipung etu tired. Give each other Chuchuman mena, two etu tired, do Chitati, Locombe one, Lemsang, Yoyak Harbor, Kale Yongure, Kalakalan Gurgure. Local Sim Gichini Reset, local Bendosun, Compa. Tanok was a comio mara, Macom in some cabore. Come now, Maggie with the kind of mines, Yatichimuala Sunda.
And so First of all, we need to understand that generally speaking, karmic actions fall within two categories, virtuous and non-virtuous, good and not good. And yet, also, we do need to understand and develop equanimity. And equanimity, we lack equanimity at the time when we have created the orientation or come from a place of orientation of self and other, where self is attached to things that attached to things on its side and are averse to things on the other side. And so because of our perception of self and other, we create preferences and aversions. And this is why we lack the equanimous state. And so we really need to come to see a fault in this. And so the way to rid ourselves of those ups and downs of preferring this and being averse to that is to see the fault in it, to see the fault. And when we see the fault in that, and we really habituate to it, to whether there is any good thing to be attached to on this side and any bad thing to be averse to on that side, once we see the fault in that and then habituate on eliminating that, we can bring ourselves to a point of regard of equanimity. And so we have the four immeasurables. And in the practice of the four immeasurables, we look to develop qualities within our own minds and bring them to fulfillment until we reach them in their boundless measure, actually without measure. For example, immeasurable love, immeasurable happiness, and so forth. And actually, although when we recite it, immeasurable equanimity, boundless equanimity is recited in the end. When it's practiced, it's said that we should start with equanimity. Actually, we must be first very well trained in regarding things as equal, in an equal nature. And also within the seven-fold pith instructions, it's when we train in those seven trainings, the first thing that we do is develop vast equanimity. And how do we do that? We do that by meditating on every single living being as having been our mother, as our mother, our kind mother. And in this way, we see them all in that same precious way as our great kind mother. And when the lamas also teach, when our spiritual masters teach, they also teach the same thing, that we should regard all as equally. And in the training that we do when we are exchanging self for others, so there's also the training, the practice of exchanging oneself for others, so one's own interest for the interest of others. We first develop equanimity in able to do this. We see all others just like ourselves and actually put them first before we do ourselves. And so it's very, so this is what we do, but we must habituate to it. And Shantideva has said in The Way of the Bodhisattva, said that there is nothing that will not become easy through repetition and familiarization. And so we must familiarize in this again, these practices and trainings again and again. And then when it comes, though, for example, to regarding others' actions, we must understand and see faults in hate and hurt and anger, and understand that is, like negative activity. And and when we see someone doing something good, actually, it's very good to rejoice and see virtue. When you do see someone that's doing something virtuous, we should see good in that. And when we see someone doing something cruel and negative, we should see fault in that. Actually, it's said that we will gain good karma when we do appreciate and recognize that someone has done good. And that actually to rejoice in negativity would be the wrong direction, because we would gain negativity, even if we're only visually regarding it and saying, oh, good for them, I'm glad they're, causing all that harm. We would also accrue that negative karma. And so, but it is important to gain some stability in what happens within our mind stream when we're regarding things, because actually, just because of our natural disposition, our moods and so forth can change like the weather. They're so ready to change because we're not stable. So when we work with these trainings to create and gain equanimity, this really steadies us. We become more stable, and it really steadies us. But it is important for us to identify that non-virtues are a fault. To create harm and be cruel, that it is a fault. And to create virtue is something good and something that brings good qualities. So for example, at first glance, there are some, for example, maybe we'll see this brave warrior that's on the warpath and doing all of, this destruction and pillaging, and say, oh, yay, yay for them. But actually, if we think about it and we know the difference between virtue and non-virtue, someone with any sense wouldn't be cheering them on. They would see that as negative and say, you should think, well, they shouldn't be doing that. And so all of this takes familiarization and repetition. We need to really habituate these things to bring ourselves to these states such as equanimity, or automatically recognizing virtue and non-virtue and so forth.
맞다는 아주 망체지 서로와 류기 서로와 깡깡지 세는 로데기 어와 제진보다지 뚫로 야보다지 대 왕배 거기 서로왔더니 깡깡지라 고거디기 어와 삼로기는 맞다래 삼로는 뭐지 다니나 부장은 몰라 가르팽기도 도시 지 부장이 몰라 센디자마인 바 깨와치마 삼로다네 배 삼로는 다데더니 잡자 시시제나 되니 귤도 전부도 용해요 말이 맞을 때 부자리 뭐 삼로도 마다데 왕배 거기 서로와 깡깡질러 삼다는데 때배 배 그것도 용초초 진데디어래 되니지 갈랑아서 고코르데 거와 딩기 푸기 삼로도 가서 nembu지 당기네 따래 인규란다.
And so in regard to this ever-changing inner mind, we are so just really blown about by our feelings, because we're so connected to like our physical pleasures and our physical feelings. For example, we want good food and something that tastes good, and nice clothes and things that feel good. We want to feel good. We want to taste. We really spend a lot of time connected to our physical feelings and our sensorial feelings, our body. And we're just, really kind of enslaved there. And that's where we put a lot of our focus. And we don't spend a lot of time thinking about our mind. We think about taking care of our body and making sure that it's, I'm not hungry and I have enough clothes, and feel just right, not too hot, not too cold. But what about our mind? What's our mind doing? And it's really when we learn to look at the inner landscape of mind to see what's happening there, to get that all taken care of and squared away and steady, that we will be serving our long-term goals. Really, this is really like the long-term view, rather than just what's happening right now. How do I feel? Am I hungry? Am I really looking at the mind? And so this mind that is indeed just really ready to change on the drop of a dime, we need to get hold of that. So naturally our mind is just ready to go here and there and really change. But once we learn, we need to learn to get hold of the mind. That's what will help us see us to really accomplishing long-term goals. When we can get a hold of this ever-changing mind and really steady it and learn to control it and get it to a place where it's very, very steady and stable. If we only concentrate on the feelings of the body, then we are going to be tricked into actions that will be our own undoing in the end. So we shouldn't just focus on taking care of our body and tending to all of the feelings of our body, but we need to learn to get control of our mind. That's what will really accomplish our long-term goals.
어떤지 발전이 이래 당원에 가서 풀라 삼다네 배 신디 점만이 봐 지마 벤지 삼다네 세민상이 답에 방지 꾸니 아버지 디투비나 안되나 진데 줄도 렌상 줄도 용 초저디 용거 말해 줄도 용에데 딱 원에 가서 즉 세민상은 가서래 빵이 아버지 디마투 아니 푸냐링부 답 낭바이나 개왕치 유니 상기 고판두야게 미유지 용거와 근데 자투고 말와 근데 자투근지나 대티니 지미라데서 베테가치 깨게 국민도와 베테가 친디르 당샤도와 요 치마 조제네 맞아 친디 짱짱데 세용데가라페 둥알 제탑마베지 때 대화다까니 둥알 코나 제게 탑람 라금미도 대화라 레야 코나요 말다
대화라
대화라 레야게 탑시 미도 이 뭐네 부장이 못 삼당과 또 세면하니 개회 초들 가서 툭툭지 곰디 랩구치고야 미거 초들 가서 툭툭지 곰디 짜고야 채뚱아도 다 견도 맞다나 다 되게 전주의 바이올리우전 때는 망보승도 견 생기 견데 녀몽부 견데서 그래서 삼당보다 뺏게지 뭐래
And so generally, we think about only this life. And that's why our mind is changing like the weather, because we are just enslaved to trying to accomplish the needs of this moment. But if we're only thinking about the needs of the short term and the needs of this life, then we can't focus really on the greater goal in the long term. We can't focus on the next life. We cannot focus on the need of the desire to attain enlightenment. So if we're simply focused on the needs of this very moment, we can't, for example, accomplish like the great yogi Milarepa. And so what we need to be able to do is give up regarding this very moment's desires for a greater purpose. And so unless we focus on the long-term goals, it would be very, very hard for us to have the renunciation that it takes. And so in order to really give that up, we must renounce those things for the greater purpose. And so this is the method. This is the only method that we rely on actually to be able to do this. And so this really changes this this really modifies this ever-changing mind. We renounce this very moment's fleeting desire for the purposeful long-term goals. And this really gets us to a point of being able to stabilize the mind. And then we actually have a chance. We have a chance at getting happiness, at accomplishing our own happiness. And so the way we do this is it's really through mind changing and really directing the mind in a very virtuous way and training it, conditioning it. And earlier on in the chapter on conscientiousness, in the way of the Bodhisattva, there were many, many verses dedicated to how to train the mind in recognizing when we are heedless and unconscious of our action and the non-virtues that can come from that and the faults that can come from that. And so looking back to this chapter also can give us ways to train the mind, to steady it, so it can be focused on that long-term goal.
Yeah, that she's a true buzzing song.
Oh,
She's a condition to how come.
I guess you said, oh, it's already 6 o'clock. Do we have any other questions? Did that answer the last question?
Yes, thank you.
I have a question about karma. It's if you have, say, killed several bugs in your life and there were 3 steps involved, but you don't remember the time and some of it was quite a time ago and karma metastasizes, it increases over time. How do you purify that if you don't know when it happened? Like, is there a certain number of mantras you need to do or?
Ani nguma ani pelcher di lengen sangne di jorngu jisum sangne ani lengen sakne yanayang ani ledi di lengoma yut sang tanda de korla ani serpo hako tupio marwa dene ledi ani daktap kari kari ani yerna pena mixelgi ngak ani donna ani lengampa tingoma sakpe le ani dayagitap ani yerna
Ta thap ta chisho de ngarchepe dikpala kyundu tone tela kyundu tagwa de chikre dikpala kyundu maltana digo mare dikpala kyundu ta teni kemro sanke tengi top tere teke chembuchi re kemro cheya simke ya ani ta nga condition reme zunga inanda tube zunga inanda ten daya de tipe dipata ke nyempon rothue chini pe gawa changchu ki semdang ani pe tongi tobel tawe zimbi chene ani pe nga de tangina dipata ya ki te nyempon rothue chi ko are
mixelgi ngak kenla Yiga?
zunga inanda jeri zunga kandina zinje de chanju gisem da tongi tobel tawani zingu gore. Ani di juguda chinje tangen pe tindi rangpung jenpung에 리바데 땐 싸와니 니제 삼데 domsemde 구고are. 말질len gösem chinjella domsem goe. Ti peke chembore. Domsem gösem da ni tegala kemrusem ke da sum ani nimbukuni chobe sobda nga te tangdu gala chanju gi semda tongi tobel tawagi zimbachene dipata ge nyembo rutube cheya. 다 님부터 지식으로와 대체는 미다 이해봐요 말다.
And so, so first, one should recognize that one may have committed negative karmas in previous lives, but it's not enough to recognize that one may have committed many negative karmas in previous lives, but one must see that as a fault, see that as something that is not good. And so then one needs to then purify this through the four powers. So a confession or admittance, laying bare one's wrongs, admitting them, and then applying the four powers. And one does that through first reciting, for example, refuge, taking refuge, and saying the words of arousing bodhicitta. So one says refuge and arouses bodhicitta. So first one recognizes and regrets the faults. One recites refuge and bodhicitta, and then with a mind that recognizes emptiness and is full of bodhicitta. So with both of those in your mind, emptiness and bodhicitta, you then recite mantra. And it doesn't matter which mantra, whether it's Vajrasattva or Chunrazig, for example, whatever mantra that you recite, while under the influence of an understanding of emptiness and holding bodhicitta, you recite the mantra. And then you also then pledge to not commit any of those former deeds again. That you resolve to not commit those again and regret them. And so in that way, all of the powers are complete. One has the power of regret. One has the power of the complete application of the antidote, which is that recitation of the mantra. Ani tenkitop kare yorela. And so the power of reliance. So the power of reliance is when you take refuge and you hold bodhicitta, then that's your power of reliance.
Kimruti chida sangil ten nyepa jingora te tagore. Sangil ten nyepa sagora ta chik chosuna tene chosungu kortobas chosunu magube chos tenigi nyepa de kimruchin tagore. Semchen la tongchung kese nyan shisho je magbo jingora semchen ten dikbaji. O de semkene tezul ten dikba de tagore. Te inda kimru semke de tengi tobre elare.
Oh, lasso.
Hang la nyepa sasa tele tene nyepa de taga insa 따기 탑시지기 여인상 겸도 semkete tengi tobrese de seade tere.
And so why is it that the recitation and of refuge and arousal of bodhicitta is the power of reliance? So reliance meaning that, that ground that we are admitting our faults to, for example. When we recite the words of refuge, we're going to refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, to the enlightened beings, to the spiritual teachers on the path, and to the spiritual teachings, to the three jewels. And so that's really our reliance. That is, our reliance. And because in our past lives, we have committed many wrongs and many misdeeds and unwholesome acts that actually have caused harms to others, other beings. When we arouse bodhicitta, which is the love and care and concern for all sentient beings, and this is then purifying this. This is the reliance of purification for all that harm that we've done to other sentient beings.
Oh, that big. Mazu sarina saltin ya languda. Oh, that tena jinji kang nipa sasal telelteni nipa de jang insang. Kimru semkejini jang insang. Tengi top se ade terita tensa nipa sasa tegala teni nipa de tapa chikore.
So just as when we fall upon the ground, we use the ground itself to support us in standing back up, we use these as a reliance to help set us back right, our refuge to the three jewels and our mind of bodhicitta. We use these as a way to help purify our negativities, our former transgressions. So it's like we use them to upright ourselves.
Then Gipa de Ke Chambochire. Gipa Mena Shape Mita Bez Sumuda, Zapatul Rimbochiri. Ani Jimila Jebedorjigi. Vieta Sambana, Gopachin Tapa in Sumuda.
La Yankichik.
Vieta Sambana. Dipa Tagre Sansana, Gopachin, Dipa the Lanipe, Nepatoni, Gopachina Tagres, the Eta Sambana, Gopachin Tapa ins. Josem de Kechmure. Josem Yoala, the Palakun Madonna, Josem Yomara. They change me, Mijibe Thompson de Guda. That's the package Mudoa.
And so remorse, being remorseful and regretful for what one has done is very, very important. And Zapatra Rinpoche spoke about this, about the power of the great power of being remorseful and regretful. And as did Milarepa, who said, if one wonders, oh, have I purified that negativity? One should then ask oneself, well, do I greatly regret what I have done? And so it's through the power of regret, actually, that purification comes about. And so what actually we do, so we need to bring along regret. What do we do once we have brought about a feeling of regret? This leads us to then pledge to never do that again. And in order for us, to be regretful for something, we have to see the wrong in it. If we don't see the wrong in something, we won't regret it. We really, truly have to see why it was wrong. And once we do, then we will be in just the place we need to be in order to take the next step, which is to pledge to say, I will never do that again.
Oh, yeah, Tandika Jana Maret.
So we'll stop the teachings here for today. It's about 6:15, so time is up. Mhm. And so next, when we pick up in the text, back in the Way of the Bodhisattva on chapter 9, we're on the second of those 5 points. And so, again, briefly, there was the objection by the lower schools that said, well, if you say things lack existence, then why is it even sensical to accumulate virtue? If things are lack no intrinsic reality, then why do we even need to accumulate merit and so forth? And so we pick up in the text there next. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just going to point you to the verse in the Way of the Bodhisattva that is, let me see, in the Padmakara translation. In verse 9, for example, it says, through a Buddha who is but illusion, how does merit spring? So that's where we are in the text. And so we talk about whether it's sensical or not. If there is no reality, things do not truly exist, then what is the sense in collecting merit? And so then the Prasangikas will then answer that question.
Yeah.
So now we'll say our closing prayers.
장주 semcho rimboche 마케 빠나 긴규르지 갸와냠바메 고네 고도 배워라서 강제라베 꾸르위 진감대 펜다데와 말린주 제레즈원 덴진갸조이 자베시데 파르도 땡규르지 잠벌 파웨 치터kem 군도 잠보 태양 대진데 대다 군기 제조달 야완디다 탐제 rabdong tisum shipi yawa tamche ki kana chodong 다진게 자원들 군자 정보 최초라도 와르기
Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. In the land encircled by snow-white mountains, the source of all happiness and benefit flows in your person, Chinrezig Tenzin Gyatso. Please remain until samsara ends. And just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attained omniscience and Samantabhadra too, so now do I dedicate these merits to train and follow in their footsteps. As all the victorious Buddhas of the past, present, and future praise dedication as supreme, so now I too dedicate these sources of my merit for all beings to perfect good actions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Geshe-la.
Geshe-la.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
See everyone next time.
Yeah.
Ashitale, thank you, Geshe-la.
Thank you.